Block 16, Dante, Canara, Kitchen Table, just to name a few. I mean, these are some of my favorites, and they are all sourcing meat from him, or at least they have in the past. That would be the work of Jon Nelson, the owner of John's Naturals. Hey there, Omaha. Welcome into another episode of Restaurant Hoppen. I'm your host, Dan Hoppen, and I've never met my guest on the podcast before today, but I feel like I know him well because I've eaten his food at so many different restaurants. We're talking Block 16, Dante, Canara, Kitchen Table, just to name a few. I mean, these are some of my favorites, and they are all sourcing meat from him, or at least they have in the past. That would be the work of Jon Nelson, the owner of John's Naturals. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It has been a long time coming, but I've been watching your stuff and been admiring it from afar, so it's glad we finally got a time to meet up.
I'm very excited that this is happening. I just got to start off at a high level. What makes you so passionate about meat?
Oh man, it goes back a long time. I mean, it's a long, beautiful story. I mean, just growing up, I always had my mom had a little stool on the next to the oven, and I'd be making chip beef on the stove and making that roux. And my role was just to stir and stir and stir, make sure that roux didn't burn. And then, just always loved food since then. And then as I got older, my dad used to take me to um, some places when with his work and stuff, and he'd take us to lunch at we'd go to Spirit World when it was on Pacific Street, and then we would go to the winery, which was out by Westroads, and he'd take us when I was like 12, 13, and I'd be eating these sandwiches with like stuff that I've never had, cheeses and bread that I've never eaten before, like baguettes and like Gouda cheese, and these sandwiches were just amazing. And that's where I kind of fell in love with food. He would peruse the wine shop, and me and my brother would just eat these sandwiches and drink root beer, and it was just incredible. And that's kind of where I fell in love with food. And unfortunately, my dad passed away when I was 15, and so I just remember all of those memories were all kind of centered around food. Like the barbecues, the dinners, the restaurants, the holidays. It was all food, and so that's kind of where I got passionate about it.
Isn't it amazing, like, the impact that food can have on us? Like, I'm sure your dad, as he's taking you and your brother and you're just getting sandwiches and he's walking around, he's not thinking this is going to influence what my son does for the rest of his
Yeah,
career. He's thinking this is lunch.
yeah,
But that memory is, like, so embedded in you and it, like, played a part in you starting something new that now that is
yeah,
impacting all kinds of restaurants and all kinds of people across the entire city. It's
yeah.
just wild.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I was working, graduated from college, University of Iowa in 2000, and I was working in corporate America, and I was driving 40 minutes one way to work in West Omaha, and I'm from Council Bluffs, the other side of the river there, and there was this little development strip mall opening up in Council Bluffs, kind of on my way to work, and I saw it getting started and saw it being built, and I kind of knew one of the developers just kind of indirectly, and I just showed up one day, and he was there, and I was asking about leases, and we signed a handshake deal, and I didn't have financing, didn't have anything, and it was Cellar 19 Wine and Deli. That was the first kind of little sandwich shop, and it was an inspiration of the winery and Spirit World, a little wine shop with a cool deli in it. And so I didn't have a plan, anything. Went to work like a couple weeks later, and I had a meeting with my bosses, and I'm like, "Hey, I signed a lease to putting in my notice. I signed a lease to open a wine shop and a deli." And they're like, "You're opening a wine shop and a deli in Council Bluffs?" And they were like, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." And I'm like, "Well, I already signed the lease, so it's happening." So then, yeah, I went to work and found a loan. It was hard. They told me no like two or three times, everybody in town, and then we finally found one, and just kind of inspiration. My family helped me, and we just started it from nothing and made like 20 sandwiches, had 1 through 20, and a little wine shop. My little brother built this wine rack out of this crazy wood, and just kind of went from there. And it was 8 years just like that. And then it sold pretty quick. Like there was a customer who was always badgering me, and I was in there 7 days a week. We were open 7 days a week making sandwiches, and I just loved making those sandwiches. And I feel like they were great. Still open, by the way, to this day. So, um, but yeah, that's where kind of it all went down. But then, yeah, it sold quick. and just like that. And I was like, oh man, what am I doing now? And I was always frustrated with like where my proteins were coming from. We like have the best farms, the best soil on earth, and my stuff was coming. My proteins were all coming from a truck from New Jersey, and those environmental costs, the food costs, the quality just wasn't there. And that's when my wheels really started turning about trying to do something different and finding my passion in something. And there was this little small town, McClelland, that I got a couple buddies that live out there, and we drink beer out there sometimes. And there was this little rundown building, and it was closed and hadn't been, nobody'd been in there for like, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years. And it was just sitting empty, but it looked like an old butcher shop. And that's kind of when it started to kick. And I tried renting it from the farmer, and he was like, no, my guys use it sometimes. And then I looked around some more, and then I finally went back to him like, can I rent it from you? And he finally agreed to rent it from me. And then we just started kind of going from there, watching YouTube videos. I went to Iowa State University and took some meat science classes on like deli meat and how that stuff was all made, which was a crazy whole different story on deli meats and how they're actually made. And that's kind of where we started. And we just started making sausages, little custom sausages, chorizo and Italian, and all sorts of good stuff, and kind of rolled it from there and just opened a little retail butcher shop. And that's where it started.
Okay, we're gonna dive into that history a lot deeper.
Okay.
I love the overview that you
Sorry.
just gave us.
Kind
No,
of
no, no,
yeah.
you're good. That was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
First, I just want to, if somebody is listening to this or watching this and they're hearing about John's Naturals for the first time,
Yeah.
how would you describe it to them, and what makes it different from any other butcher shop in the Omaha, Western Iowa area?
Really, it's all about animal welfare and sustainability and raising animals ethically and without the hormones, the antibiotics, the daily antibiotics in their feed, the growth hormones, it's all vegetarian fed. There's no bone meal, fish meal that they put in, so it's 100% vegetarian. But it's just quality of life for an animal, which I think ultimately results in a better end product. So that's the biggest thing. And, partnering with family farms, local family farms who, it's a kind of a closed loop system. So the water, the feed, it's all grown on the property. So it's this closed loop, and it's just this beautiful system.
You talked about as a restaurateur, excuse me, you were really frustrated that you've got all this great local meat around you, and yet you're having to get it trucked in from halfway across the country,
Yeah.
and that just felt wrong.
Yeah.
How does John's Naturals help close that gap and make those connections between the small farms and restaurants?
Yeah, we felt like we wanted to be the bridge. So that was our goal, is to kind of be the bridge between the restaurant and the farm. And so that's developing relationships with producers and jumping through the hoops that are in place to make that happen is a challenge, and they're ever changing, and it's hard, and there's lots of hurdles, but partnering with the right people who do stuff better than I do and actually raise these animals, and building those partnerships and those relationships and finding out the logistics on, how to get that product from production to a facility, and then ultimately in my hands and to a restaurant. But yeah, lots of challenges, but that's kind of what we tackled, and we're still tackling it, and it's ever changing. The smaller guys get gobbled up, or they make it harder for the smaller guys because the big boys want to kind of control the market and the industry. So it's a challenge. I mean, it's still a challenge. We're 12 years in, and it's just as hard, if not harder than it's ever been.
In what ways?
Just being able to find supply, pricing. Prices go up. We process at USDA plants, and so prices, the middleman, the processors' prices go up, have gone up and gone up and gone up. I feel like the farmers are still getting close to the same amount of money for their livestock, and but the middleman, who unfortunately there's not a ton of small plants, USDA plants that can process. To be USDA inspected, you got to be able to sell wholesale, you have to process at a USDA plant. So it's limited. And when they control the prices and they kind of I wouldn't say collude, some of them do, but the big five, I mean, they make it hard for the little guy, so they don't want us around.
Hmm.
Yep.
Well, you're working hard. You're pushing through it. You're doing good work. I know that I shouldn't say I know. I know it used to be this way. I don't know if it's still this way, but the majority of your work is done with restaurants, but you also sell to consumers as well. You've got American Wagyu, you've got the Heritage Duroc pork that you sell.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to get their hands on some of this really good quality meat you're talking about, not a restaurant, but just a
Yeah.
normal consumer, how can they do so?
Yeah, we have an online store, johnsnaturals.com, where we deliver locally deliver local, or pickup is available as well. And yeah, so we do that with, we kind of have switched gears a little bit, over the years. And we started as a small butcher shop and just opened to the public. And it was a tough go. We're in a town of 160 people. It's tiny. And I realized one day, like 6 months in, some lady came in and she ordered like one sausage, one bratwurst for like $2.50. And I think my first week sales was $200. And so I realized pretty quick that it's the best thing about starting a business and being an entrepreneur is you throw something at the wall and see what sticks, and you adapt and change. And I realized, we got to do something different. And one of my suppliers was like, well, we sell to a restaurant, and, we process at the plant, and then we pack it in coolers, and we take it back to the office, and we run it up the stairs and put it in the cooler, and then we take it back down and put it back in a cooler in the car and deliver it to the restaurant a couple days later or whatever. Would you like to take this account over? And I'm like, yes, please. And that's where it all kind of started rolling. I mean, pretty quick from there. A couple restaurants, and being able to go in and meet these chefs and these restaurant owners is just crazy. It's so much respect and affirmation for these guys, admiration for these guys. Uh, they're awesome, and they're creative, and they have that passion with food. So that was kind of how we grew, is building those relationships and just backdoor in a restaurant. That's what I called it, backdoor in a restaurant. And you go in the back door, and a lot of them, they're busy, and you don't go there during morning lunch rush or lunch rush, but you try and catch them at a time. But a lot of times they're like, nope, 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 get out of here, whatever. And so you drop a sample, drop your little information sheet, and try and follow up with them. But it's hard, they have their setup, they have their products that they're using, but you try and get that product in front of them. And being food people and love food, when they see that food, they can tell right away. And that's kind of how we've made our hay, is showing them the product and the difference between commodity stuff and between our stuff. And that goes back to the sustainability and the ethical raising of the animals, is how the product's different, and you can see it.
And I imagine, once you start to get some restaurant, like it's a snowball that starts rolling downhill at some point when Block 16, which has been around for, I think, 13 or 14 years now.
About the same as us.
Yeah, once they sign on, and then they're very beloved in the restaurant community, that gives you legitimacy. Same with Dante. They've been around for 16 years or something. So, like, I'm sure you still have to work with the restaurants to get
Yeah.
them to want to invest in the product. But when they see other restaurants, Canar is throwing a special with John's Naturals on there, or Kitchen Table champions your product very highly. Like, once other restaurants start to see that, I imagine it gets a little easier to sell to new ones,
It
right?
does, and it's a tight knit community, and those guys are like the Godfather, the old school. And they have so many people working for them, and so many passionate younger people that work for them, and such amazing people that just love food. And some of them will branch out, and they'll maybe go somewhere else and get a role that is better for them, or they start their own joint. And a lot of them start their own joint, and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, you remember me from Block 16? Or and I can't tell you how many people have done that, and or went to a different place. And or some chef will move to another opportunity or something, so we'll get that restaurant. And so really it's building those relationships with those chefs, and knowing that they can count on the quality and the um, customer service. I mean, that's huge too, being able to Paul tells the story at Block 16 where he'll be dreaming about a pig head at 2 in the morning, and he'll text me at 2 in the morning. He's like, I need 3 pig heads this week, split down the middle. And I respond as soon as I can, and I'm like, okay, I'll make it happen, I'm done. And so they can count on me. I think with some of the bigger places, you don't get that personal level of customer service, and that's helped us a ton too. So
It was hilarious. I think it was Midwest Food Stories did a story where
Yeah.
Jess and Paul came out to John's Naturals and they like cooked up a dinner out there with you. They did pulled pork sandwiches and their
Yeah.
girls are out there and they're super. This was from like 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah, at
Paul's hair
least.
looks so
Uh-huh.
crazy.
Yeah.
It was just like a major blast from the past to see that. But
Yep.
it's cool to see how that relationship has continued to develop and you guys have worked together for a
Yeah.
long time now.
No, they're great. They have been one of our biggest proponents from the get-go, like one of the first. And yeah, they came out one day and we had Midwest Food Stories and they had some drones. I didn't even know drones were existed back then, but we had some drones flying over, so that was cool. And cooked some food and told stories and just conversations, those conversations around food, that's super important.
I know something that you're really passionate about from looking at your social media is helping people understand where their food comes from. Why is that so important to you?
I just think quality of life and what's in your food, looking at labels and reading labels and seeing what's actually in the product you're consuming. I mean, I went and did a week-long meat science course at Iowa State and way back in the day after I sold my first restaurant. And um, we were talking about deli meats and how they're produced, and it was a huge eye-opening experience for me. I mean, I'm thinking turkey and ham is cut from a whole muscle, cured and sliced, and that's not the case. I mean, stuff was coming out of tubes, and they have a bag that looks like a ham or looks like a turkey, and it's just sludge coming through the pipe. And the thing, my biggest takeaway from all the speakers is it wasn't about the quality. It was about like water retention and how much water can we pump into this piece of meat and what we need to put in there, the nitrates, the phosphates, uh, to get it to retain that water. So they don't want it to purge in the package. They want it to last to 6 years on the shelf so they can sell it and they don't have to worry about waste. And they don't want that water that they've all pumped in there to purge out and be saggy in the bottom of the bag. So they put in stuff to so it doesn't purge in it. So it was all like I felt like I was at a waterworks class.
That's
It was like
terrifying.
water retention. Like how much water can we put in and how do we retain that moisture in it so the customer doesn't see it? And that's when it like really blew me away. And, you know, uh, so that's kind of where it changed for me and just seeing what's in your product and what you're eating and not getting any younger. Yeah, I'm almost 50 years old and I'm trying to be healthy and exercise and know what's going in my body. So yeah, that's
I had the owner of Ellsworth Crossing on the podcast a couple months ago. Tony is his name, and he's a very passionate proponent about food as medicine and what you put in your body ultimately determines how healthy you are. Like, i- and he's not talking about, eating a bunch of pizza and like, ice cream and fatty stuff, but he's
yeah,
talking about like what you're talking about right there. If you're putting in a bunch of like
yeah,
fake meat essentially that has been so pumped full of preservatives and just all kinds of junk so it can stay on the shelf longer, that is like actively killing us.
yeah,
So
yeah,
to be able to go through someone who can say, no, I know where this pig was grown, I know how it was treated, I know that it was humanely butchered, everything along those lines, that is very rare in today's world, but also very important, right?
yeah. No, it is, and it makes a huge difference. I think in our health and quality of life and our kids' lives and being able to um, educate and pass that along to your children, your restaurants, whoever. But I think it's super important. So, and that's yeah, like the antibiotics in feed, and we're a no ABF or we're an ABF antibiotic free, and it's like putting when my little boy gets sick or something, and you give him Motrin, but it's like putting Motrin in his oatmeal every morning just to try and prevent illness, and that it's just not right.
hmm Okay, let's get a little bit deeper into your story. You did a great job giving us like the top level. I want to dive a
Yeah,
little deeper.
let's go.
So, you did not have restaurant experience before opening Cellar 19.
No.
What I mean, you talked about how it was the memories that fueled you, but I have great food memories too. And I drive by a lot of empty properties, and I've never once had the desire to be like, that, I'm going to lease that and I'm going to start a restaurant. What was it in you that made you see that property and just say, I have to do this?
Yeah, it was my dad and that passion and loving. But in college, I was just kind of going through the motions and at Iowa, and I got into business school, and it just everything just was. I wasn't interested. I just was taking all my classes, taking my major classes, and nothing really got me excited. And up until my junior year, and there was this class, that elective, or I took, and it was entrepreneurship and new business formation. And I remember it like it was yesterday. It was guest speakers and like real life people. And this guy came in, this Indian dude came in, and he's like, I just bought a water bottling facility. And it's before, this was 2000 or 1999, 98. It's before people even really drank bottled water. And he's like, I bought this spring and this water facility, and we're starting to bottle water, and just his stories. And it was the coolest thing ever. And I was like, dang, this guy is awesome. That's what I want to do. I want to be an entrepreneur. And so that's where it really started. And then, based on my interest level and what I wanted and what, I was passionate about, that's kind of how that got started. And yeah, loving food, and had help with family. But yeah, I couldn't get a loan to save my life. And that's what their kicker was, that the people that refused me said that you have no restaurant experience, so we can't give you a loan. And luckily, my older brother had worked in restaurants. I mean, he wasn't a chef or a cook or anything. He just was like a bartender, worked in restaurants and stuff. And so I went back and redid my application and put that in there. And one bank said, okay, well, we see that you have a family member with some restaurant experience, so we're going to give you a chance. Yeah, I got it.
And you said you operated that for 8 years, right?
Yep, almost 8 years. Yep.
I mean, with that being so closely tied to memories, I mean, you're not replicating, but you're creating something that's very close to what you remembered with your dad,
Yeah.
and, kind of the end of the time that you got to have with him. What was it like to do that professionally and to provide that experience to other people?
It was pretty cool. And he was a physician in Council Bluffs, and so it was right down the street. And a lot of his colleagues and friends would come in, and uh, yeah, it's still hard to talk about um, mental health, and he um, died by suicide. And so
I'm so sorry.
yeah, and it's hard. And but that memory lives on. And just I know that if he would, it'd be a place that he would come and hang out. And that's always been, important to me. And mental health is a huge importance to me, and raising awareness and stuff. And so we've done some stuff with all of the restaurants about mental health and suicide prevention. And yeah, I went off on a tangent there, and
No, you're fine. I
apologize.
go on that
Yeah,
tangent because I think it's obviously
yeah, yeah.
a,
It's
a huge thing, not only in the restaurant industry, but just in society in general.
yeah,
If there's anything you want to say on that front, please use this
yeah.
platform. Go.
Yeah, just being able to create conversations. And I feel like those are kind of where the best conversations are had, is around food, and hard conversations. I mean, and I was young, I was 15, and so I really couldn't grasp a lot of it. But um, the best conversations I remember were all around food. And I think that there's a connection there between uh, food and conversations, and having conversations, being able to say if you're not okay, or um, you're dealing with something. And it's the best place to be able to have those, because you're centered and you're gathered around food, and there's conversation going on. So yeah, something that's super important, and still working on different avenues to kind of create awareness and stuff. But yeah, that's important.
Well, you created an establishment that honors your dad and his memory, and even though you're not running it anymore, it still exists.
Yeah,
Like, I think that's really unique. A lot of
yeah,
times when a restaurant passes from ownership to ownership, it doesn't work.
yeah,
The quality suffers, the new owner has different ideas, and the concept just kind of falls apart,
yeah.
and that has not happened in this case, and I'm very glad to see that.
Hey, number 17, John Special. smoked turkey, provolone, green peppers, onions, spicy mustard, toasted through the little conveyor belt. It's legit.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
You had me at spicy mustard,
Yeah,
and like
that's right.
that makes a
And
sandwich.
mayo. There's mayo on there too.
Mm.
Yep. But it's all about the bread. You got to have the baguette, the crusty baguette to be able to soft inside, and it's bread's the most important thing.
Man, we're having this conversation at 11 in the morning, like right
Yeah.
before lunch. You can't be doing this to me on the
We're
podcast.
getting there.
Okay, so the Cellar 19 portion of your career closes.
Yep. 2013.
And you open John's Naturals in 2014.
Yep.
And you mentioned you're driving by this place and you say, that looks like an old time butcher shop.
Yeah.
Butchery is a very unique skill, and it's not something that's learned overnight. It requires some time.
Yeah.
Did you have butchering experience, or what made you look at that and be like, that should be a butcher shop and I should run it?
No, I didn't have any, just from being loving to cook and loving to barbecue and smoke meat and all that. So yeah, just the power of the internet. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. You can go online and learn how to break down a whole animal in an hour and a half or something. But there's a lot of information out there, and I actually got a job at Hy-Vee and worked at the meat counter this summer after I sold, and everybody's like, what are you doing working at Hy-Vee meat counter? And I was just trying to find customer trends and see what people were buying and learn as I went. And I was the low man on the totem pole, so I had the crappy shifts, and I was pretty much stocking twice baked potatoes and refilling the sausage, but ground sausage stuff. But I did see what people were buying, and most people were buying what was on sale. So, the 2-for-1 sirloins, which I don't even think they were actually a deal, but that's what they buy. They get the sales sheet, and so that's what everything would sell. All that would sell quick, and yeah, so just learning from that, and then just going for it, just jumping in. That's the hardest part, and your best way for me to learn is just to do it on the fly and learn as you go. I have to see it and feel it and get in there, and then you learn, make mistakes, and yeah, learn as you go.
How does one even like set up a butcher shop? Like, who did you have to talk to figure out, here's the equipment I need, here's where it should be placed in here,
Yeah.
what kind of like FDA regulations do I need to,
Yeah.
figure out? Like, who helped you with that?
Yeah, that was all just kind of learning as we go too, just with friends and family. My sister works at the Iowa State Extension Office, and so there's some resources there. And we're a state inspected facility, and the USDA kind of has been. They come in every once in a while, and then the state health department comes in and tells you what you need and what you have to have. And it's pretty straightforward, and get inspected, whenever they come, and make sure you're doing the right things. And it's all about, food safety and making sure, there's a clean and sanitary environment. So, yeah.
You are amazing, John. You are just like the ultimate DIY guy.
I love a project. I'm a big project guy. Sometimes I get out over my skis and over my head, and my wife will vouch for that pretty quick. But yeah, just I love ideas and starting ideas. I got a couple in the hopper, but I'm trying to uh, uh, focus on what I'm doing.
So you open the business, and at first, you kind of had the idea people are going to come in and I can sell them bratwurst, I can sell them stuff.
Yep.
And it kind of becomes apparent that might not be the right path forward. How hard was it for you those first couple months, and then having to make that pivot? Was that
Yeah.
difficult for you?
It wasn't. It was pretty straightforward, and luckily, some luck happened, and I fell into my hands. But I was still having fun. I sold my restaurant. I had a little bit of capital, not much, and so I was just loving making sausage, and had my manual stuffer and my grinder, and I was just making stuff. And then you realize, you got to sell to be able to keep your doors open. But the transition was fairly natural, and luckily it happened with a good supplier, and then turning me on to a good end customer. And yeah, so it happened pretty natural.
How does the sourcing chain work? Like we've talked about connecting these small farms with both consumers and with restaurants. How do you identify those farms and those good partners that you want to work with?
Yeah, so luckily, TrueBridge Foods was the first partner that I came across, and they're a pork producer. They're veterinarians by trade, and just like an amazing group of people, amazing company. And that's where the whole animal welfare and the ethically raised animals really came from. Like I said, they're veterinarians by trade, and so it's all animal welfare. And I was able to partner with them and kind of be their distribution wing and be able to start getting the product out there on more wholesale level to commercial accounts. And um, so that's kind of how it works. They process at a federally inspected facility, and we get boxed end product and boxed beef, boxed pork, and then just logistically being able to make it happen, the cold chain, being able to make it from the plant to cold storage or to the end user. So
Something, this might not be true, but I imagine it's true, that's unique about you as a butcher is you had those 8 years of experience as a restaurateur coming into this. So you kind of have an idea of what it's like on the other side. You've had that conversation with meat producers who are coming to you. How did that experience of having your own restaurant help you when you started going and talking to other restaurants about your product?
it was huge. I was taking product to restaurants, and they wanted completely opposite of what the grocery store wanted. The grocery stores they want no fat. They want the lean side. So when you sell a pork butt at the grocery store, it's flipped upside down. I call it upside down, and the fat cap's not there, and it's all trimmed. They want the lean to show, and I'm taking product to restaurants, and they're like, "Yeah, can you leave the fat on? Can you bring me a bone-in pork loin or a boneless loin? Can you leave the fat on?" And so that was kind of a learning experience for me too. And so I go back to the plant, and luckily we're flexible because we're smaller, and you have those relationships. And we're like, okay, Ben Made's from Akron, and before that, he's been everywhere, Avali. And he was kind of the first one. And we have specs in our spec sheets that is called the Ben Made's cut. He's invented.
Really?
Even Matt Mosier have invented. They invented the bacon chop, which is a belly on rib. So it's a loin with the belly still attached, and it's called a bacon chop. And so you cut down through the belly and through the pork chop, and it's an 11 rib rack, but the belly's still on it. So you get 11 chops, but it's got belly on it. So you can sous vide it, you can roast it. And it's just an incredible product. But back to the story, that's kind of how we grew, is listening to our customers. And that's such an important aspect of the business, listening to your customers, what they want, and being able to adapt and change. And that's what's different about us, I feel like, is we can adapt and we can change. And I don't think a big company can just go, "Hey, we want to change this spec and leave more fat on," and it'd take way too long. We're able to adapt, and we're in the process weekly at the plant with fabrication, and so we can make changes and come up with cool cuts, like cuts that was going to trim. So we pull a secreto off of the top blade, and it's usually going to trim. So they grind it, and we're like, "Can we pull that little muscle out of there, and we'll sell it as a secreto?" And it's this beautiful, it's called the secret cut. And a Mexican restaurant actually was the first one to tell me about it. And they're like, "Can you give me this little blade?" And it's like a flank steak. The marbling inside of it is just insane. And so we pull it and pack it, and it's a 12 to 14 ounce, good for, I mean, it's versatile. You can do whatever you want with it. But yeah, doing those cool, unique cuts and listening to the customers was huge for us.
That is something that I have loved seeing in restaurants, especially the last couple years. Like, I feel like we're seeing more hanger steak, more flat iron steak, things like that on restaurant menus that we didn't see before. It's not all just ribeyes and filet mignon. Like
Yeah.
my wife and I, when we went to a steakhouse last weekend, and their like big special that they were promoting was Terrace Major.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm just like, yes, these cuts
Right.
that are really, really good that haven't been recognized for so long are finally getting their time in the sun.
Yeah.
Are there any other like cuts of pork or beef that you want to shout out that it's like if we see that on a menu, don't run away from it, but order
Yeah.
that?
Oh, I got a ton. You gotta get creative, especially with pork. Pork is the, like the, uh, it gets lost in the shuffle on the menu. I mean, you see the halibut, you see the
Hmm.
hanger steak, you see the chicken, and then the pork chop. The pork chop, it's always been the pork chop, and you're not going to sell them. Pork's a hard sell sometimes, so you got to make it. You got to be creative with it. Yeah, whether it's the sides that are accompanying it or the special cut. But yeah, there's a ton of crazy cuts out there. We do a boneless ribeye that's coming off the end of the loin, and it's just this. It looks like a ribeye. It's got that cap on it, that fat cap on it, that dark red muscle meat, and so a boneless pork ribeye, incredible. The secreto one I mentioned, another pork cut off the blade that's heavily marbled. That's insane. The bacon chop, which needs to make a comeback. I'm gonna text Ben when I leave here and tell him he needs to pull it at his new place that's coming up, getting ready to open. But what else? Pork. We've been doing some bavettes, sirloin flap. My new favorite cut. Just insane. It's like a uh, uh, skirt, but a little thicker, and just the tenderness, the hanger steak sitting next to that organ liver and stuff that just gives you all those mineral. I mean, that's my all-time favorite is the hanger steak. The sirloin flap, the a bone-in short rib. What else? Oh, the picana. A lot of
Oh yes,
places
the pecan.
have
Gosh,
Chad
yes.
from Cure up in Fort Calhoun. He sells picana like it's going out of style. And I mean, just that fat cap with that sirloin. Um, yeah, tri-tip. So a lot of tri-tip, which doesn't get a lot of run around here. I guess on the West Coast it's pretty big, but more and more we are selling a bunch of it. And it's great cut. I call it a little miniature brisket. I've been smoking them, and instead of smoking them just to like roast beef temp, 140 or just to where you can slice it, I'll cook it up to brisket temp and get it to 200, and it's just fall apart. There's so much intermuscular fat in there that it's just like this wobbly, jiggly piece of greatness.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
What makes a chef a great partner to work with versus just a customer?
Being creative and a lot of these guys are just extremely talented. We've seen by some of the nominations and recognition that they've got, but just having that passion uh, for food and wanting to know what their customers are eating and where it's coming from, and yeah, really the creativity is the biggest thing, and it's a lot of them are, maybe my age, a little bit younger, and more and more so younger, but just building that connection that, it doesn't always have to be about food. Like Paul, from Block 16, we talk sports and baseball, and Colin at kitchen table, same thing, talking sports, talking Red Sox. Paul's a Yankees fan. Colin's a Red Sox fan.
You're a Cubs fan, right?
I'm Cubs.
My man.
Yep,
Go
yep.
Cubs.
Cubs,
Go
and
Cubs
my
go.
kids watch the Braves, so I'm like, baseball's weird for me. I go Braves, I go Royals, I go Cubs. I know that's not really legal, but I do it anyways, and so
You got the Bo Jackson
yep,
shirt on
I do.
today.
That's right. Yep,
We'll allow it.
that's why I wear the College World Series just so everybody knows what time it is. Yep.
What is it like for you? And you've talked a lot about, chef creativity. What is it like for you to, whether it's on social media, you're seeing the dishes that chefs are creating with your product, you're seeing specials, or you go into a restaurant and, you know, you go into Okarant and Ben Maid serves you a dish and you're like, this is my pork, like this is what I gave to you and this is what you did with it. What is it like to see chefs take your product and just transform it into something completely
Yeah,
new?
no, it's unbelievable. You got to pinch yourself and feel that it's real because, we started in a tiny little town with no customers, and being able to build it to that. And people text me pictures of menus and stuff, and they'll send me, and they're like, I just had this. And it's like, it's just overwhelming. It's unreal that these guys buy our stuff and put it on their menu and our names on their menu. It's like the coolest feeling in the world. And just, I appreciate all of that. And I think it goes back to, yeah, just trying to build relationships and try and provide a product that people appreciate.
Is there a dish that you've had at a restaurant that uses your product that really like stands out in your mind that was just like, holy crap, these guys are awesome?
Yeah, you put me on the spot here.
I
Uh,
apologize.
Anything at Block 16. The sloppy Nick. I don't know if it's still on the menu.
Oh, it's still
But,
on the menu. I think people would riot if they took
yeah,
that off.
yeah, crazy. Barchin, Barchin. There needs to be a poll. We need a poll on the pronunciation on that. I've been
I
selling
believe
it
it's
this
Bearshin.
Barchin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've been selling to them for 7 years, and I get it wrong every time. Their burgers are insane. We do some sausage for them, but you can get me at a burger every time. Kinara with their pork cheek vindaloo. I mean,
Oh my gosh.
out of this world.
Yes, that
Yeah.
you don't even have to chew that. It
No,
just
that fall
melts in your
apart.
mouth.
Yeah. What else? Um, Marrow's doing some hanger steaks that look insane. Timber is doing bavette, and they are super creative. Just walking into Timber, the smells of like the wood-fired grill and the food and the coffee in the morning, all those smells mixed together. It's like they should bottle that.
Make that a fragrance?
Yes, it
Yeah.
should be
Or
Timber.
yeah.
Be a good name.
I'd buy it, put that air freshener in my car. I think the greatest compliment that I can say about John's Naturals is everybody loves like all the crazy creative dishes at Block 16, and they come up with just some awesome stuff. One of my favorite things to get there is just the block burger, and it's just a burger.
Yeah.
It doesn't have all the crazy stuff. It's a burger with ketchup, mustard, cheese, pickles, lettuce, tomato, but like your basic burger condiments.
Yeah.
Because the meat shines.
Yeah.
It's not any crazy combination of things. It is the meat itself that is the star of that burger, and it's one of my favorite burgers in Omaha because it is just so good.
Yeah.
So I don't really have a question there. I'm
Yeah,
just saying
no,
it's
yeah,
awesome, and I
yeah,
love that the meat shines.
No, it goes back to the product that you start with. I mean, I think a lot of blends and grinds and burger patties, it's the stuff that is going to. It's not whole muscle product. I mean, there's some in there, but a lot of it's trim. A lot of it's maybe higher fat content. And if you're starting with a whole muscle product like chuck, round, short rib, brisket, whatever you throw in there, and we have a lot of steak scraps that we throw into our grinds, and the end product and the Wagyu with that good hard white fat makes for a pretty good grind.
Is there a dream Omaha restaurant that you want to work with?
Oh, man. We've been doing some specials with the committee
Mm.
and over the holidays, and I'm trying to get in there on a more of a full-time basis. They do a really good job. Brandon down there. Who else? I'm always knocking on doors to everybody out there. The guys at Flagship, we sell them some stuff through Cisco. We kind of have a partnership with them where Cisco does some pork distribution for us. But yeah, no, not that I can think of off the top of my head.
What are some of the major issues with meat sourcing in the restaurant industry, and how do you think, like, what are some of the solutions to solve those?
Yeah, making it easier for the small producer to get it to the restaurant, and just being able to have facilities that are um, more access to facilities. So you don't have to go to the big five. And I think they've been trying since COVID. They've been trying to make it easier, and provide grants or money to build smaller facilities for smaller producers. And I feel like that had some headwind. I think that a few of them have stalled out. I don't know why. I haven't dug into it, but just really finding creative ways while still maintaining safe and traceability. Um, yeah, just trying to be able to bridge that gap. And I mean, yeah, that's hard, but just trying to create kind of more avenues.
Moving off of restaurants for a second and looking at just the everyday consumer, if you could change one habit about the way that people cook or buy meat, what would you
Ooh,
suggest to them?
man, uh, I got some friends that are grilling meat and they're just clueless, and they send me pictures. I got one guy that he cooks a burger, and I think he flips it 40 times and smashes it on his grill and then dumps beer on it. and then flips it. I swear he flips it like 50 times, and that's his method. Like flip it 50 times, pour beer on it every time, and smash the heck out of it. And
Just wasting a lot of beer,
right,
man.
and the fat is all gone out of there because you're smashing it in the grill. That's one. And then I'm a cast iron pan guy. I've been doing a ton on cast iron, just a flat top. And charcoal, I love it, but when you're cooking for the family and all the kids and they're hungry in like 5 seconds, you got to go out, you got to start your coals. I'm a charcoal guy. And so I have a big green egg, and I love it, by the way, but it's easier to just fire up my cast iron. I got a good cast iron pan. I'd say that's the biggest thing. Find something good and just get that heat up and try not to mess with it. Get a good hard sear on it. Leave it in its place to where it sits, and then when you flip it, put it in that exact same spot. And I'm learning from I peek when the chefs are cooking in there too. I'm always watching and getting little tricks. And Dave at Yoshitomo taught me the torch trick on the uh, um, chuck flap or the short rib. It's got one of them torches, and you got to have the right gas for it, obviously. But he'll drizzle a little soy sauce in his squirt bottle, drizzle a little soy sauce on that little thinly shaved piece of short rib, and then just torch it. And
Just
that caramelizes it, and it's raw, but it's cooked and seared. I mean, so I bought a torch, and I was torching meat for a while there. But that's my Dave story. But he's got good tricks, obviously.
I mean, the guy makes incredible food, and his restaurant doesn't have a grill.
Yeah.
Not that you necessarily need that for sushi, but he also serves beef and he serves other things. And yeah, he just he makes
business model.
he makes magic happen.
Or a hood.
I want to ask you about an Instagram post you had March 26th of 2020.
Wow.
You put a picture of your two boys up, and you said, when you get old, which you weren't old, still not old, but when you get old, the focus shifts a little. It's less about you and more about them, providing the tools to be successful in life. Hard work, courage, honesty. What to do when adversity smacks you in the mouth. You can quit, run away, or dig in. How important has it been for you to use your business as kind of like a teaching tool for your kids and your family to show them what it looks like to be a man and to be a father?
Man, that's a big one. Big question. That's huge for me. It's hard when, it's hard when you lose your dad at a young age, and then you have kids, boys, and so that dynamic is interesting. You want to. I was, going back. I was so mad at my dad that he did that, and I didn't know, and I was there. There was anger, and we didn't talk a whole lot prior. My parents were splitting up, and my dad was moving out, and I didn't want anything to do with it. I tried quitting freshman basketball in high school like 3 months before, and he's like, "You ain't quitting. We don't quit. You're not quitting." And so then he told our families, and him and my mom both, that dad was moving out, and I was like, that's bullshit. He told me you couldn't quit. He told me we don't quit, and I told him just go. And it's one of the biggest regrets that you have, and it's one of the last times I talked to him. And then you get older and you have kids of your own, and it's crazy to even think about. You try and be there, and I'd probably over try, and I don't know, there's no book, you just learn. And so you try and be a role model. You try and just I try and throw that extra love, and watching them grow from little kids to where they're still and they're still 12, 13, and 4. And then I have three. My wife has three too, so we have six, and they're all under the age of 13. And so it's a ton of work, and I feel like it's my biggest accomplishment. I have I've failed a ton, and I've learned from that. I've succeeded a couple times, but I feel like my biggest success is those kids, and it's what drives me daily. So yeah, being able to teach them about life is super important, and that it's not easy. It's hard. You're going to have issues. You're going to deal with stuff, and you got to be able to push through adversity, and you got to be able to talk about stuff. My wife has really opened my eyes to being able to communicate and talk and share, and um, uh, being able to um, understand what stuff that you're going through, and being able to, to talk about it. So I make a point to, to do that with our kids, and it's really shaped me. And it's the most important thing to me is those kids, and being able to remember my dad and understand maybe more so about what he was going through and what he was dealing with. And he was 46, I'm 48, and it's a hard time in your life when you're kind of at that age where your parents are getting older. My mom, she's got some pretty good health issues, and you have kids and so there's a lot going on in business, and business is hard, and relationships. And so yeah, it's just this huge uh, ball of wax, but try and do the best you can with what you have, and make good decisions. And you're going to make wrong ones, and that's part of business. That's the best thing about business is failing and dusting off and getting back up. And every day as an entrepreneur or a business owner, you wake up and you better hit the ground running, and stuff's coming at you left and right. There's going to be there's problems, and that's feel like one thing something that I'm good at is being able to navigate those problems. And um, yeah, so I
That
don't know if
is
I answered any question,
Oh,
but
you
yeah,
absolutely did. That was awesome. And that's something that I've really admired about you just in this conversation is just hearing when you hit adversity or when you hit something that you don't know how to do it, you just figure it out. There's so many people who just they're stuck by their own inertia where they're just like, "Ah, this is hard.
yeah,
Somebody help me." And you're just like, "No, I'm gonna get a job at Hy-Vee, or I'm gonna spend the next 2 hours on YouTube watching
yeah,
people, butcher this animal, and then I'm gonna try it myself." Like, I think that that is such an inspiring thing to see someone who doesn't just admit defeat and say this is hard, so I'm gonna move on, but says, "No, this is hard, but I'm gonna figure it out and see if I can do this." That doesn't mean you can do everything. You can't just say, "Oh, I want to be as good of a basketball player as LeBron James, so I'm gonna do that." Like,
yeah,
there are some things that are within your limits and some that aren't, but you have pushed and done everything that you can to make this business what it is. When you look back to 2014, and now we're 12, almost 13 years later in 2026, how do you think the business has most evolved?
oh, I think that we've grown, and we've kind of come full circle with back to our roots. You grow, and we got to a point where we we grew pretty quick and pretty fast, and you can get the wool pulled over your eyes pretty quick and just think that you got this well-oiled machine, and this thing that's just humming. And change can happen in a hurry. And COVID, when COVID hit, we like overnight we lost 90% of our wholesale restaurant business, 90%. And um, and then, the phone started ringing on the retail side because you couldn't find meat in the grocery store, or it was too expensive or something. So the phone started ringing there. And so we built up the kind of the retail. And luckily that was allowed us to hang on. And slowly restaurants came back. It's still never came back. I feel like consumer habits have changed. People were cooking at home. People were going out less. People were um, just kind of changed their way, and I still don't think we're back. And then you add on inflation, you add on labor costs, um, food costs, yeah, with the inflation, and it just feels like it kind of stacked on top of it. And it's I feel like at some points COVID was so long ago that it's even harder now than it was when it all went down to begin with. And for these restaurants to be able to persevere and push through is extremely admirable. And some of them have changed over, and a lot of them have come and gone, and it's not easy, but you gotta love food. If you don't love food, you're not doing it. So that's one connection that we all have.
Well, I couldn't agree with that anymore. And food is what connected us today. I'm very glad that it did because I had never met you, and I'm inspired by you, honestly. And I
Same.
thank you for taking the time to come on the podcast today. It was really fun to learn more about you, more about sourcing meat and everything. People, go to johnsnaturals.com, check out the selection there. There's all kinds of awesome steaks and cuts of pork, like we talked about, maybe some that you're not going to find at the traditional deli counter or anything at your local grocery store, but there's an awesome way to cook it. Just don't flip it a bunch and pour beer on it.
That's right.
And
That's right.
also,
Drink your beer.
if you go to a restaurant and you see John's Naturals on the menu, order that item. Like, it never fails unless the chef just absolutely butchers it, and I have not encountered that yet. John, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Appreciate it,
This
man.
is a
It's awesome.
blessing.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Omaha, as always, thanks for eating with us.